Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You are here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. Our guest today is Becca Ribbing, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right because I didn't clear it with her prior to the recording.
You got it.
There we go. Becca Ribbing is the author of The Clarity Journal and has been a coach for over a decade. She's on a mission to help people break out of the cycles of uncertainty and struggles that hold them back. Welcome to the show, Becca Ribbing.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this one.
Me too. I love clarity. I think it's really important.
Yeah,
why is it important to you and your clients?
I think that so often we actually start with momentum. Like people are like, I wish I had more momentum. I wish I knew what I was doing. I wish I was really self-actualized. And I think that the main thing that is missing is that sense of clarity. And when you start feeling kind of frenetic and wishing like you were doing more, the reason why you're having a hard time with that is because you don't have the clarity about what is actually coming. And so it feels a lot like you might start backtracking. You might just be going kind of around and around in circles. And so clarity really is like the bedrock of moving forward with your life, of getting where you want to be.
So how did this context of clarity? I mean, it's very important to me. I use it in my introduction for this podcast. I use it in all of my work, and people don't understand what clarity truly is. So why is it important to you, and when did it start entering your life as a journey?
Well, so I might start in the middle because I kind of feel like I've been a coach for a long time, and clarity has always been a big thing that I coach around. But I hit my own point of uncertainty and lack of clarity, I'd say maybe 4 years ago. My son had been born with he had lots and lots of ear infections. And even before that, I was underwater. We had moved from Washington, D.C. to Seattle, Washington in the middle of my third trimester. And I had a hip injury that meant I was using a cane on and off. And so we kind of went careening from one thing to another, like first the hip injury, then the move, then my adorable son was born, but spent a lot of time crying and sick because of his ear infections. And, I was so underwater that I was just doing the bare minimum. I was helping my clients as they came to me. I wasn't doing much marketing, and I was keeping this cute little bugaboo alive. and I think we all hit times like that. And I think a lot of us are coming out of a time like that with the pandemic. So I think a lot at this current moment, more people can relate to that, because as you start coming out from whatever cocoon you've kind of built around yourself when, you're just getting by, it's funny because you start almost getting angry, start getting annoyed. Like you recognize that there's something missing, but because you're coming out of this space of low energy or traumatic energy, you're not feeling expansive yet. And so when I was in the middle of that, I was trying to figure out how to rebuild my business in a different direction. And I knew there were things missing in my life, and I couldn't pinpoint it. And so I was doing what most of us do. I was complaining about it for the 20th time to a friend of mine. And she was wonderful. I love her. But man, at that time, I just wanted to sigh and storm off, because she stopped me in the middle of my complaints and said, Becca, you're a coach. What would you tell yourself?
No, not that one.
No. like, please don't. And so it's so funny. I got off that Zoom call really, really fast. And I just sat down with a pen and paper and wrote down every question I have asked clients to help them have their aha moments, to help them find that clarity. And as I was doing that, I then wrote, I think about 35 all in one sitting. And I stopped and I started answering them for myself. And I just realized how powerful it is to be pulled out of your own frame of mind and have to look at these questions in a different way. And so often when we are thinking to ourselves or when we're talking to friends, we're looking at that problem, whatever problem it is that we're noodling on, the same way over and over and over again, and we're not gaining the clarity we need. And so, it's really funny because as I was doing that, I realized one of the things that I had let go of during all of that time of chaos was my writing. I had always had a blog. I'd always done independent writing, and I forgot how impactful and meaningful that was for me. So the Clarity Journal became my first major writing project after that. And it's like, okay, everybody needs these questions because everybody hits these periods of time where they are uncertain because, we're always growing and changing. And maybe not all of us, but anyone listening to this podcast is probably growth oriented. And in order to grow and change, we need to give ourselves space to recognize when things aren't working and give ourselves time to really explore what the next iteration of our life looks like.
That's a marvelous iteration. And I think that the power of the pad and the pen is overlooked. And you need to use that pen to paper to write things down, to ask yourself those questions. I mean, for you, it turned out to be asking questions that you have asked of your clients vis-a-vis your friend who lit the spark, even if she doesn't know it till today, lit the spark in you to query yourself based on how you handle your clients. Because this is important. People don't understand that if you're that much against the wall and your hands and legs are sharp against all that brick, there's nowhere to go. You have to back up. You have to back up, take a breath, get that yellow pad. I have yellow pads all over this room. Get the yellow pad and get a pen and start writing anything.
Yeah.
To get it out of your head and your heart and your body.
Well, and the cool thing about writing is that it's a commitment to yourself. When you're journaling or when you're allowing yourself that time with the pen and paper, you're really going deeper and allowing yourself to commit to moving forward in a different way. And often when you're just sitting there thinking about the problem without writing it down, you often will find yourself getting into the same thought patterns over and over and over again. I often call them negative mantras. And being aware of whatever negative mantra it is that's getting in your way can be really powerful to help you move forward much quicker.
Well, if people understood that we are made of patterns, they wouldn't even consider thinking. Thinking is a waste of time.
Yeah.
It will... The answer appears if you find a way that's different than the way you've been going. I mean, as I say, I've got that picture, certainly of myself, many times in my lifetime, against the wall, and the wall is too big to knock down. So what do? You have to retreat from the wall and find another method to adjust your movements. It's just... You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And if you have that pattern, and as I say, we're all made up of patterns, that's all we are, you can't think. You can't think clearly because you're going to think of the same thing again.
Yep. And you're going to tell yourself the same thing over and over again.
Yes. So if you can write things down, to me, what I usually do, as a sidebar, maybe 98% of the time, is when I am fortunate enough to record a podcast guest, I say, usually at the end, but we're going to do it here closer to the middle, is after you've heard this podcast once, listen to it again with a pen and paper in front of you to start taking notes, because you won't remember everything that Becca Ribbing is saying. I'm guaranteed. You just won't. Too many words, and they will conflict with your existing patterns, and then you'll start thinking again. So take the time to re-listen to this podcast with a pen and paper and start taking notes. You will be amazed what Rebecca is saying and how it applies to your life and your path. So
I'm just going to pause you for a second because I love that advice. And there have been some very life-changing podcasts for me, but I've never done that exercise. And now I really want to just go back and re-listen and just take notes and journal about it. That's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. To me, it's my attachment to the pen and paper. Mm-hmm. And people are, let's open a Word app and make some notes there, but you forget because you only recall what you have aligned with your existing patterns.
Right.
When you're trying to think of what Rebecca, I'm sorry, why do I keep calling you Rebecca?
It's fine. It is my real, it is my
I understand.
Full name, so.
It's Becca Ribbing. So you will only focus on what aligns with your existing patterns in your recall attempt, because we cannot recall 25 to 30 minutes of data that you've heard from two people and what Becca Ribbing is saying. It's impossible. Well, somebody's going to say, no, I can do that, Joanne. God bless. Go forth and do it and teach it. But you need to write down, take notes, and then you can listen to the podcast the third time because it can't hurt anybody.
Right.
And this is where you will get some insights by writing, because it comes out of your body, not your mind. People don't get the distinction. Where our thoughts and where our actions come from. It doesn't come from our head.
Well, and writing is it crosses both hemispheres of your brain. It uses all of you. It's physical. It's almost like a movement meditation to me.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Not many people understand that concept of number one, cross-brain left-right experience, and the fact that your entire body is within the writing. I know I experience all sorts of things when I'm in the midst of writing a blog post or anything, and it's like, no, that I can't feel that. I have to change that. And, it's like giving birth again on a very small level, people, but it's like giving birth to something. So talk about your Clarity Journal, where it is, what it's all about, maybe in more detail, and where people can find it.
So it's on Amazon, easy to find. And it's basically about 100 prompts and quotes that are really set up to guide you through finding clarity. It's also meant to be done, like the questions I always say at the beginning, you can do as many questions as you want, as few questions as you want. You can skip around to find the questions that really resonate with you. But the deeper you go, the better your results. And I start with all of the positive that's going on in your life, because I find that when people are struggling with clarity, a lot of times they throw the baby out with the bathwater. They're so focused on things that they want that they forget that they also want to carry forward these other things in their lives. They don't want a wholesale change. They want something just a little bit better or a lot better, but that doesn't mean that what is good now they want to throw out. So I really start with this deep dive into what's going well in your life, this deep dive into your strengths and becoming more secure in being able to articulate your strengths. And then I move on to fun questions like I have my favorite baby. My favorite question in the Clarity Journal is, who do you envy and what does that tell you about yourself? And I love that question because when we ask that, we always ask, who do you admire? And we don't necessarily even believe we're capable of emulating the people we admire. We admire the Dalai Lama, or we admire, like almost people that have become almost mythical in our mind. Whereas when we envy people, we envy really specific things about their lives. And if you are, say you were a sports podcaster and you were like, if I asked a sports podcaster, who do you envy? They wouldn't tell me like 5 mommy bloggers that they were envying. They would tell me other sportscasters who have developed a really interesting voice or a really interesting audience or are just really great at interviewing. And the more that you can actually dive into that, I tell people look for 3 to 5 people that you envy, because then you can really take that and create a picture of what it is you actually want. And each of those people is going to inform what it is that matters most to you that you don't have in your life.
Yeah, I just did that in my third brain, and and it answers quite a few questions.
Right.
So, who do you envy? And I went superficially, of course, since 2 brains is enough to handle at one time. But it was like, oh, and I have all of my excuses of why I'm not doing what I could be doing, maybe. And it really answers a lot. So when you tell people to respond to all of these questions, do you anywhere in your journal, your book, your tome, tell people to redo these questions?
At the end, I talk about how clarity is on a continuum. I think sometimes when we talk about life purpose, we become very stuck in a 1950s mindset that you do this once, you're going to figure out what you're going to do with your life, and then you're done. Well, that doesn't work because your experiences are constantly informing what you want. So the more experiences you have, the more that shifts and changes, and we can't be static. We're always looking for growth. So I tell people, the second you start finding yourself being a little restless, like what I was talking about in my own experience, where I was just feeling stuck and not really sure how to utilize my strengths and feeling just a little held back, that's when you need to pull out the clarity journal or start journaling just in general, because those times are going to keep coming up. And I tell people to just expect in 1 to 3 years, whatever clarity you come up with today, in 1 to 3 years, you're going to need to revamp that. You might need to revamp it earlier, but you should expect that in 1 to 3 years, you're going to have to do this deep dive again. And every time you do this deep dive, if you can do it at the beginning of the feeling of stuck, then you just keep building momentum over and over instead of hitting those troughs where you're kind of complaining to your friends and, you don't feel energized. Maybe you're binging on Netflix a little too much. The more that you can recognize it for what it is, like, oh, that clarity was great for then, but I need to draw a new picture. And that drawing of the new picture can really be energizing if you allow it to be.
Well, I am more strict than you. I certainly recommend it to everyone, but certainly my clients, that at the beginning, such as yourself, I provide boatloads of questions, business and personal, and they have to respond to them immediately when they become my client. However, I recommend /tell/advise that they redo these questions and respond to them every 30 days.
So that's really powerful.
So they can see their growth. And every little movement forward is a movement. So, I'd help them not label the movement, oh, that's not such a big deal, when I say everything is a big deal. It's your life. But every 30 days. And, people piss, mine, and won't and all of that, but I don't care. Yeah. They're paying me a lot of money to get their life and their business in order and find out what their life is truly all about. So they need to take hold of that. Now, some people will say, I don't want to do that. Fine, go somewhere else. But 30 days works because once you answer the questions the first time, there's a shift already. The patterns move. You'll get another pattern, but it might be a less agonizing pattern.
Right.
It just adjusts because every time a pattern leaves, a new one is formed. And hopefully it's a better one.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like a drill sergeant in that regard. And I apologize in advance, but not really.
Well, and there's a personality, there is a method for everyone, and I mean, I got chills when you said every 30 days, because I think that is really powerful, to just be constantly making sure that you're on the right path, and how powerful for your clients.
Well, certainly based on what's been going on for the past few years, I think we're in the land of few and not couple of years. There's no time to waste.
Right.
And if you have made improvements in a day, a week, a month, a year, you're fine. You should note it and take advantage of it, and look how you can redo. They could redo the questions in the Clarity Journal by Becca Ribbing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that all of this, any self-exploration keeps you moving forward. And as you said, like, there's no time like the present. If we hold ourselves back from doing this now for whatever excuse, it's just going to grow and grow within you and make you like frustrated, make you angry. I think one of the things I also love about that question about envy is really taking back the power of recognizing your emotions. I think sometimes we talk about emotions as being irrational, but emotions are totally rational. They are rational responses to whatever is going on. Now, what you might do with that emotion is not necessarily rational. Like if you are, frustrated at work because your boss isn't utilizing you well, and instead of going and job searching, you go and binge watch 7 seasons of The Wire, then
what a good one to pick.
Thank you.
It's the best.
It's one of the best,
thriller.
and it's rewatchable. Let's just say that.
Yes, it's amazing.
It is. But it's what you do with whatever negative emotion you are having that really defines where you're going to go in life and how happy you're going to be within yourself.
Becca Ribbing has a great website at BeccaRibbing.com. That's Becca Ribbing. And she can be reached by email at Becca, BECCA, at BeccaRibbing.com. So for our listeners who have fortunately held out until the end of this episode, close by, can you give them some steps they can take right now before they can buy your book to find clarity?
I would really sit down with a piece of paper and just really start actually taking stock of what is good, and even more importantly, taking stock of your strengths, because at the very root of all of this is using those strengths to move you forward. And the more that you can be really in touch with your strengths and your values, the more you can make sure that whatever path you are choosing at any given moment is in alignment with that.
I want to thank Becca Ribbing for being here today to give her insights into what clarity truly is, how it can affect you today, tomorrow, and in the next decade. And go to her website at BeccaRibbing.com. She's also on Twitter at Becca Ribbing and on Instagram at Becca Ribbing. Thank you for being here today. This has been phenomenally clear. If the people that are listening pay attention, and I admonish them all the time. So,
thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I've enjoyed it as well. Take care and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.